Good morning, everybody. I'd like to thank Sue Harrison for inviting me to open the plenary of the second symposium of UCT's Interdisciplinary Water Research Institute on regenerative water. I must admit that the title initially made me a little nervous, as I'm no expert, and I wondered what more could be said to a group of accomplished academics such as yourselves, who are engrossed in research and knowledge production on these issues. What comforted me, however, was your apparent desire to be inclusive and collaborative in your search for solutions to the complex environmental, social, economic, and even political problems that we in South Africa and the rest of the world are facing at this time. In this regard, the partnership that AGA and Minerals and Metals formalized in 2016 was a good example of how to put our money where our hearts are. It is also an opportunity to acknowledge and remember the indomitable spirit of Professor Dee Bradshaw and commend her and all of you for living the value of partnerships and collective effort. I would also like to thank my colleague Brian Chickson for facilitating this video this morning because I'm not able to be with you. Coming to the subject of water, to say that water is a basic need for every living being and that without clean water all forms of life cannot exist sounds very banal. Each of us has a personal relationship with water, and we understand how indispensable it is for our lifestyles as well as for good sanitation and health. Many of us who live in big urban cities and have easy access largely take it for granted, like we do electricity, food and shelter. Until one day when you open your tap to have that daily shower before making your way to work and nothing comes out. And I need to say no more to you in Cape Town, except to reiterate that it is opportune to hold this seminar here today because you have understood the meaning of a water crisis, experienced what adjusting to water scarcity really means, and you've experienced the threat of a future without water. It is also with interest that the land question is a burning issue in South Africa today, and it is imperative that we address it in a manner that will facilitate peace rather than conflict and destruction. Some of you have also understood why, although the United Nations General Assembly adopted a historic resolution introduced by Bolivia in 2010 to make clear drinking water and sanitation an official basic right for citizens of UN member states, the right to water is not legally enforceable. It has symbolic value and places obligations on national governments to ensure that access to a much-needed natural resource such as water is easily available and affordable, because water will always be an important social, environmental and economic issue. As the global population grows, the demand for good quality water required to meet the needs of society, agriculture and industry continues to escalate. The United Nations Agenda 2030, and South Africa was the first signatory, the African Union's Agenda 2063, initiated by Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma of South Africa when she was head of the AU, and our own National Development Plan provide clear frameworks for a shared future we can all aspire to, for the world, our continent, and for our country. Sustainable Development Goal 6 of the 17 UN's 2030 Global Goals is dedicated to water. It seeks to ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. This includes, inter alia, by 2030, achieving universal and equitable access to water and affordable drinking water for all, achieving access to adequate and equitable sanitation and hygiene for all, paying special attention to the needs of women and girls and those in vulnerable situations. Improving water quality by reducing pollution, eliminating dumping, and minimizing release of hazardous chemicals and materials, and substantially increasing recycling and safe reuse globally. Substantially increasing water use efficiency across all sectors and ensuring sustainable withdrawals and supply of fresh water to address water scarcity, thus substantially reducing the number of people suffering from water scarcity. Implementing integrated water resource management at all levels, including through transboundary cooperation as appropriate. Supporting and strengthening the participation of local communities in improving water and sanitation management. The inclusion of business in the process that led to the adoption of the SDGs was an important moment in the history of the UN. It has led to a number of interesting initiatives and narratives that have identified and are strongly advocating for business to play a significant role in delivering the Sustainable Development Goals, Agenda 2063 and our local NDP. Like most of us, water-consuming industries such as agriculture and mining also have the tendency to take water for granted. Until recently, it would be safe to say that business has not developed an ideology or a narrative for the interconnectedness and changing relationships between financial, social, and environmental issues. And promoting the notions of sustainable development, responsible business, and shared value has for this reason been quite a challenge. The dominant ideology of business has either ignored or marginalized their dependencies and their impact on non-financial relationships. By ignoring the social and environmental aspects of business and locating them in the space of corporate social investment and on the margins of their real business, which means financial activities, they have failed to recognize new opportunities for efficiency, growth, resilience, and real development. The creation of the Natural Capital Coalition has, in this regard, been a very encouraging initiative. It describes itself as a unique global multi-stakeholder collaboration that brings together leading global initiatives and organizations from across sectors and disciplines to harmonize approaches to natural capital. Natural capital is a way of defining the wide range of benefits that we derive from nature. It provides the air we breathe and the water we drink. It is essential to life, and it underpins thriving societies and prosperous economies. Natural capital can be likened to human capital or intellectual capital and social capital. They also liken positive and negative impacts on the capitals to deposits and withdrawals from a depleting and finite resource. The key concept behind the capital approach, it is argued, is that it moves beyond measuring impacts and dependencies on essentials like water and health to valuing them. And valuing, they explain further, is not the same as pricing. It is understanding the relative importance of worth of a natural resource. In this regard, there is enough evidence to demonstrate that it is not possible to put a price tag on water, and governments have seen the pushback when they have tried to increase the price of water. I believe there is much tension today in the Western Cape on attempts by authorities to increase water tariffs. The coalition has developed what they call a Natural Capital Protocol that was published in 2016. It is a framework designed to help generate trusted, credible, actionable information for business managers to inform decisions. It claims to be applicable to any business sector, in any jurisdiction, and at any organizational level, and allows for the measurement, valuation, and integration of natural capital into existing business processes. The coalition, like many of us in this room, also believes that no individual organization will solve the world's complex problems alone. It is only by embracing SDG 17, Partnership for the Goals, by addressing enduring challenges, creating platforms for sharing best practices, like I believe this multidisciplinary platform is doing, and addressing and designing compatible solutions with successful social, economic, and environmental successes, that the SDGs will be attained. The mushrooming of international organizations such as Responsible Business Forum on Sustainable Development, Shared Value, and the re-emergence of the United Nations Global Compact are testimony to the need for business, government, civil society, and tertiary and research institutions and trade unions to reinvent themselves as real corporate citizens that take an active part in achieving the 2030 global goals for sustainable social, economic, and environmental development. Some businesses, according to reports, are looking to benefit from a better understanding of their relationship with the natural world, and many of us on social and ethics committees are grappling to make a difference in moving safety, health, environmental, community, and governance issues from the margins to the center of our business activities. This too holds for the interrelationship between the mining sector and its approach to managing water. In quoting Atlas Mapping Mining to the Sustainable Development Goals, mining is seen as a significant user of water and can negatively impact water quality. The mining industry can contribute to adequate access to clean water and sanitation by reducing its own water footprint in quantity and quality through water efficiency measures and recycling its water waste. Increasing the local supply of water through shared use water infrastructure, and obtaining water from appropriate sources, by then ensuring that the operations don't displace local water users or pollute the water supply, and sharing its water monitoring data and expertise with local community governments. It is no wonder, therefore, that water has become a board issue in the companies on whose boards we serve, and executives have to be more accountable in the reporting of environmental and natural capital dependencies and impacts. Some shareholders also expect companies to not only identify and deal with and find viable solutions to the environmental risks that vast and irresponsible water usage causes in the extractive process. Boards now want to avoid local community tensions and national political fallouts with governments, as such tensions obviously threaten our legal and social license to operate. Increasingly, our reputations in an environment where the currency of natural resource management has increased is at stake because the risks of mismanaging the environment and water usage are too high to ignore at a political, social, and economic level. And similarly, just as board members are concerned about their license to operate, some governments, especially in developing countries, are aware that disputes and grievances over natural resources can exacerbate social tensions that emanate from their own mismanagement of their society's political, economic, environmental, and cultural interests. The weaker a government and its institutions become, the more people are marginalized, ignored, and excluded through neglect, unemployment, poverty, and inequality, the more our natural resources become politicized. The sector has recently experienced a growth of environmental protection agencies in many jurisdictions and their reluctance to issue or renew permits for production. Many of them are exercising stricter oversight over water usage and management to address the impact of pollution on their citizens and communities who live around the mining operations. Some are breaching old, apparently unsustainable agreements between themselves and mining companies in an attempt to correct what they now regard as lax and liberal regulatory policies and practices. Tensions based on who should have access to and control over land and water resources, and who should decide on how they are allocated, used, managed, and regenerated are rife and difficult. the trust deficit between government regulators, finance ministries, communities and mining companies require much attention. These realities are as important to current mining operations as to enabling and ensuring viability and economic succession post-mining operations. As a global industry, the mining sector has the potential to have profound impacts, both positively and negatively, on sustainable development. When managed appropriately, it can be a powerful contributor to social and economic development for the common good. But if managed poorly, it can result in a wide array of negative impacts such as environmental degradation, increasing inequality, and escalating conflict. Whether we move on a path of degradation and destruction or the higher road of a shared and sustainable future for coming generations, it is important that we start with a people, planet, and peaceful-centered ideology of managing natural resources to inform the choices we make. The reason is that there is enough evidence by people such as yourselves that the management of natural resources cannot be separated from questions of peace and security. The politicization of water, land, and other renewables is a well-researched ingredient of conflict that can escalate into serious destruction. Choosing a sustainable future must be coupled to a commitment and resolve to do the necessary and oftentimes difficult actions which give us the best chance to be successful. Considering regenerative water futures, this must include researching current good practice in the world and in all sectors that are totally dependent on water usages, and to share it with people who have the desire and commitment to change the status quo. Identifying credible platforms for sharing such good practice, such as the Natural Capital Coalition, and creating similar coalitions on the continent. Constructing the way in which we understand water from both a catchment perspective as well as water being part of an integrated ecosystem. Considering social and cultural dimensions alongside technical aspects of integrated water management. Engaging with governments at national, provincial and local levels, as well as regulators, policymakers, business and civil society organizations to identify win-win solutions, and identifying ways in which we protect the resource through conservation, prevention, pollution, and recycling, and initiating the shared use of water infrastructure and knowledge as underpinned by a philosophy of shared value. Supporting portable water and sanitation planning, and finally educating everyone about the value of water through schools and in the media, and involving them in the preservation of this precious and natural resource. And very finally, effective monitoring and reporting on water use and demonstrating integrity and good governance. We also need to consider how to innovate and use the wealth of the human imagination to turn the threats of water scarcity and contamination into opportunities where we explore alternative sources of water resources. With the future of our world, our continent and our country being so inextricably linked to water, the notion of mainstreaming national capital thinking and working in partnerships to end poverty, hunger, inequality, and promoting safe environments and other societal aspirations for the benefit of communities, nations, and people across the globe is essential. The work that we do in managing this precious resource will not only contribute to saving our planet, but will also help to create a better world where the millions who have been previously marginalized or excluded have the chance to lead decent, dignified, and rewarding lives, achieving their full human potential. In conclusion, there is no doubt that water and the way in which we value, manage, and conserve it is central to our shared and sustainable future. I'm optimistic that the work being done today through this important symposium will contribute to building new knowledge, strengthening a common understanding of the challenges we face and possible solutions we may bring to bear, as well as mobilize the energy and commitment to drive real change for a future we can all believe in and be proud of. I wish you well in your deliberations, and I'm excited and look forward to the outcomes.